All right, guys. So we're gonna get our mug assembled here, our mug body. So I've got this. I've got all my parts collected. I have my handle over here. It's been sitting on the wood for about a day, covered. So again, the wood is absorbing moisture out of it, stiffening it so that it's leather hard. So I can flex this and it's not squishing together. It's not squishing when I touch this. It's still soft though. Like if I squeeze this, I can still take some of that off. And that right there is leather hard. This is perfect. So it holds its shape, but it's still got some softness to it. There's still some water in it. So this is great for assembling. So we're gonna put the body together generally. We're gonna generally assemble this thing. One of the tools that we're gonna use is a banding wheel. And the banding wheel is really nice for a couple reasons, but primarily when we're making something, when we're putting something together, when we're constructing in clay, the general underlying idea is to touch it as little as possible. So in that way, the less times we touch it, the less times we might mess it up. And the banding wheel is nice because we can take our pot and put it on here and turn it around and observe it, look at it, get an idea for what needs to be fixed without touching it. It reduces the amount of times you need to touch it. This is a small one. I've got bigger ones and taller ones. The taller ones are nice because it kind of lifts it up and puts it at a different plane, which makes it easier to work with sometimes. Just depends on what you like. But we're gonna start connecting. We're gonna put this thing together. In general, we're gonna rough it out. So I'm gonna first cut this back, take out the excess and connect to the body, the seam here. Then we'll level it. Then we'll attach the bottom to the body and then we'll trim that off. So that's our kind of general points of connection for a basic assembly. Okay, so we're gonna start with the joint here. So I'm gonna cut through both of these at the same time. And by doing that, it's gonna give me the same line. So this will be really easy to make that joint connect, as opposed to cutting those separately. Now when I cut those, the line is exactly the same in between those. So we know whenever we will need to connect a piece of clay, we need to score it. We can't just push clay together. We need to shred the surfaces so that they interlock. So one of the tools that we can use for that is this metal serrated rib. So I'm gonna score that side. I'm gonna score this side. So what that looks like is this. So I scored that. I'm gonna put a little water on there. I can use a spray bottle is nice. Just put a little bit of water in there. Sometimes I'll use a paintbrush with some water to apply it in there. And then really carefully we'll connect this joint. So I don't wanna smush this, but I do want this to, I want that gap to disappear. So I'm trying not to dent it or mar it up too bad, but definitely press those together to start. Okay. The inside seam, I don't care about quite so much. I'll do my best to make that nice looking. I put a little water on my finger. But the inside I don't care about so much, and the glaze, especially on the inside, will cover it up a little bit. So I don't super worry about it, but I might go over that with my finger, okay? On the outside here, the outside of this seam, once we get it bound together pretty well, again, I've pushed those together, then we can start to kind of preliminarily clean this up. So again, I'm going to use my metal serrated rib to just level that area. So I just scraped it, just cuts off any of the high parts, and then I'll use the back side of this. I hold it like this with my fingers on one side and my thumb on the other to give it a little bend. So it's got a curve that matches the curve of the mug. And by doing that, I can make a lot of contact area, as opposed to if I just hold it flat like this, It almost cuts a little line in it. It just cuts a little bit of clay. If I flex it, there's a lot of clay. It makes a lot of contact, and you get just a better smoothing out of it. Okay, the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna level the top of this. So for that, I'm gonna level the top of this. For that, I'm gonna get this into the middle of my banding wheel. So I'm gonna check the sides here, make sure that it's centered. And then I'm gonna get that spinning. It's not perfect, but it's doing okay. Now I can really lightly come in with my knife and just draw a line. I don't wanna start cutting this until I have a line to follow. So now I have a little line. That can be anywhere, and this is gonna be the height of your mug. So if you want it taller, if you wanna go a little shorter, you can cut a lot off if you want to. Now I have a line that I can follow, and we can cut this off of here. Okay? Scenery change. I didn't get to finish the video I was working on, so you're at my home studio now. There's my dog looking out the window. So let's see where we're at. So what we do, we left off with cutting the top off of this thing. So we just kind of roughly leveled it. So the last thing to do for building this body, putting it together, is put in the bottom on this. So I'm gonna take my bottom here. This is my bottom. And this is gonna be the underside of my mug, so I can read this stuff, my stamp and whatever. So from here on out, we wanna take really good care of our bottom. We don't wanna pick up debris and get schmutz all over this. So every time I pick up my pot from here on out, I wanna make sure that I clear that area, just taking good care of stuff. Sometimes I like to make a mark. My stamps are right in the middle, but they're kind of a little towards the bottom, and there's a lot of space over here. So sometimes I'll make a mark. That's where the top, the hole is with my initial, or the MIC stamp. I'll just make a mark right there, so I know kind of where this is, and it lines up kind of right down here on the bottom. And that helps me to center my mug. So if it was up here, if it was even on this, I might cut off some of that, the wordage on the bottom. So I'm just kind of looking at the mark that I made inside there, because it's not directly in the middle. So the first thing that we want to do is get the bottom attached to the body, then I'll cut off the excess. Okay, so I have it in position where I want based on the little mark I made. I'm gonna use the needle tool to mark that, and then I'm gonna score all this really deeply. So I'm scoring. That's all scored. I'm gonna score inside here. I'm scoring inside the line that I just traced. Put a little water on it, and then I can put this back on here. So we wanna make sure first this is attached really well. Sometimes it's very stiff now, so I can pick this up and even kind of give it a little tamp down to really make sure that that's pushed together. And sometimes I'll go around the bottom with my thumb and really work that seam together so that this joint in here is really pressed tightly, okay? So now it's connected. I like to push those together because when we do that, it kind of squishes stuff and whatever. So if I cut this really perfect and then I squished it together afterwards, or if I just traced it and cut that out, I'll have some other work to do and it just seems redundant. So I like to do it afterwards. Then it's just all stable. This thing isn't flexing and all kinds of stuff. So I'm gonna start by just trimming this down a little bit easier. So I'm just trimming the big pieces off of here. To make this a little bit more manageable. And then what we're gonna do on here is a flush cut. So we're gonna cut this flush, get it nice and neat, super simple. Sometimes simple is the hardest thing to do. I can cut this in whatever way that's comfortable to hold. Like sometimes it's easiest to put it up here so you don't have to hold the pot, and then we can slide in and cut it like this. Sometimes I like to hold it sideways in my hand with my knife. I like to have my handle side on the bottom side of the mug as opposed to holding it like this, because then you can't get in there. You're kind of jammed up over here. So I'm lefty, so I'm gonna hold in my left hand on the bottom side, and I can start cutting this. So what we're looking for is a flush cut. So what that means is I wanna cut this off so the wall and the pad, the bottom, are all one line. They're all flush. So when I cut this, I wanna slide into this, and I'm looking at the knife laying flat against the body now. I'm not even really looking at the cut that I'm doing. I'm looking at my knife sliding along the body. And if I do that really well, this is a little bit soft, so it's sticking to the knife a little bit. But if I do that, I get a nice straight line across. So you can see some of these areas. It's a little bit gummy still, so it's sticking to the knife just a little bit, and that's just another reason why you want to wait until this becomes leather hard. But I'm going to come around and lay the knife blade flat against the body and cut this whole thing. Just trim this down. The other way that you can do it is that I think is easy, is to have it standing on the banding wheel and slide around this way. So the same thing, we're just watching the body go into this. And even this again, like I said, it's a little bit soft, so the clay is sticking to the knife blade, and it's just kind of lightly, it's ripping a little bit. But I'm not even worried because we can smooth that so easily. So I got this cut flushly. So if we look at the line here, it's a straight line. It's not super clean at all. But now I can come in with a rib tool like this rubber rib or my metal rib, and I can smooth over all that stuff. No problem. So this is where it was ripped up. I'll show you where it's ripped up here, and now as I'm starting to smooth it, it's cleaning up. So this is us putting the mug together. This is as far as I want you to get on this session, is get the mug just connected. If you can get that done in a period, that'd be awesome, to just make this basic cylinder form. So we got the seam connected, we leveled the top, we got the bottom attached, and then we got our generic flush cut made. Great job, everybody.